It's a pleasure to join all of you. And I'd like us to begin just with a moment of introversion, just going inside what is my own world, my own thoughts, just for a moment. Thank you for that. I'm sure that there are many amongst you who are meditators already. And when we had that moment of silence, perhaps you were able to go on a journey to discover your own peace within. But I'm also sure that there are many of you out there who are not meditators. And what did you find when you were going inside? Did you find that there was a huge amount of turbulence? Or maybe there was worry, maybe there was anxiety, maybe there was a little bit of fear for the future. Maybe it was something that had happened recently or a long time ago, but it wasn't a very pleasant experience. And every time you give space and you let yourself be quiet and silent, then it's that trauma that comes up in your mind. So any of these things could have happened. But what do I do about all of this? If I'm on the journey of discovery to be able to know myself, if I'm interested in the subject of exploring my own inner being, then here's what I suggest. The first thing is just to be able to understand the power of the mind. Well, just look at history. How is it that we've had amazing breakthroughs in science, in medical science, in discoveries of all sorts of aspects? It's all been through the mind. The mind has been able to break through a barrier and come up with new creative ideas or exploration of new avenues that lead to all sorts of inventions and creativity. Before an artist begins, there's something that's there within the mind. And as he takes brush to canvas, something begins to unfold that maybe he wouldn't have been able to tell you about before he started this. But there was something happening in his mind that stimulated that. Here's a woman who's a singer and a writer of songs. And again, where does it begin? The seed is there, something that she's passionate about, and slowly it emerges. The lyrics come, the tune comes, and the mind has created a song. So anything that we are seeing here in this external world has its genesis in the mind. It all begins there. Maybe that's a cliche, but it's a real one in the sense that that is the reality. Everything begins with me, for my world, but also within me, everything begins in my mind. And in this awareness, let me explore what the mind really is. I see how powerful and creative it is, how it's the origin of everything that we see happening in the world around us. UNESCO Charter states something like, wars begin in the minds of men, and the defenses of peace begin therein also. And when it's talking about men, it's meaning humanity. So men and women, and the process is the same. I want to do something that's going to be helpful and kind and considerate. It begins in the mind. And if I want to be selfish and greedy, well, that also is a thought that comes in the mind. I want, I need, without any concern for anyone else around me. So the mind seems to be that thing that shapes our destiny, because my thoughts today create my actions create my character determines my destiny. And where did it all begin? It began in the mind. So we do see how incredibly powerful it is and how it's a starting point for absolutely everything. When you know that there's a potential for energy, one of the thoughts that comes is, well, how can I harness this in the best possible way? Example, somebody must have seen the immense power of a waterfall. The water's falling, and maybe it's a big height that it's falling from. But the power that's being generated, you see the white, the foam, you hear the sound, and it's incredible. It drowns out the sound of your voice. That's how powerful that waterfall is. And someone has a thought, can I harness this power to turn it into electricity? Or can I harness this power to make a windmill? Different ideas, different things. And so wherever there is this potential for power, human inclination is to take it and use it, which is fine. But we don't know enough detail about the mind to be able to harness the power of this. And when we do understand it, and we do start taking that power and harnessing it, bringing it into our control, definitely miracles can happen in life. And I use this word knowingly, not lightly. We seem to sometimes allocate miracles to another dimension, another world. But in fact, there are miracles that happen every single day. And they happen simply through the power of thought, the power of the mind. Let me explain one more thing at this moment. So far, I've been talking about the power of our thinking, our thoughts, and definitely the first and foremost function of the mind is to create thought. And it'll do this continually, day in, day out, night in, night out. So there's never a moment that I'm free from thoughts. Is that good or is it not so good? Well, it's up to me. If my thoughts are negative and wasteful, well, it's not of any use. It's self-destructive. Even if my thoughts are very plain and ordinary, well, that'll be the quality of my life. But if I stumble onto the reality that by knowing my thoughts, I can also uplift my thoughts. And by spiritual knowledge, studying spirituality, I'm actually going to be able to elevate myself by having pure, elevated, powerful thoughts that can help me and also help humanity. But there's another layer. Thoughts are moving around, and more about that in a few minutes. But thoughts are also the foundation of feelings. How many people do you know who are totally driven by their feelings? There are other aspects of this inner being. There's the conscience, there's the understanding, there's the reason capacity. All of that is there within the human being. But yet, that ability to express our feelings in a very simple, positive way sometimes eludes us because we don't realize that we can actually be the masters of our own feelings. And it's very simple. When there's a repeated pattern of thinking, that pattern becomes a feeling. And the more I let myself stay in that state, the stronger it becomes and begins to dominate my life. So feelings can, just as thoughts can be very pure and elevated, and yet thoughts can be highly negative and quite toxic. And the same applies to my feelings. My feelings can be noble, benevolent, concerning, compassionate, caring, all of that. But yet on the other side, my own feelings can be highly critical, very negative, very much tainted by things like greed or fear or jealousy. All of these things come into our feelings, and we don't really identify them and say, well, okay, this is where you began. You started to enter my inner world, and my feelings changed from being quite okay, quite fine, to becoming very dark, very heavy. And in that condition, then where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? Am I alone with no one to help me? But when I've understood that I, the inner being that's invisible, but I can feel it, I exist, I am. But who am I? Now, this identity has dominated not only all my waking hours, but even my resting hours. Because even during periods of sleep, short or long, whatever it may be, when I see myself in my dream, how do I see myself? I see this, the physical identity. The reality is that I, the inner being, the soul, have a distinct, separate identity to the physical form, this body. And when I explore this awareness of just being with myself, in that awareness of God's light, then I don't need to argue with anyone. I don't need to prove myself to anyone. I have my own understanding that I've checked out through my experiences. And in that condition, yes, I can be absolutely stable and calm. Whatever is going on outside is out there. My thoughts are calm and serene. My inner state of being is also peaceful. But what if I can't manage to do that? If my thoughts are in upheaval? Well, let me remember. Let me ask myself the question, who is the creator? And the return answer is that it's me. I am the creator of what's going on in my own mind. And when I acknowledge this and realize this, wow, I'm beginning to tap into that extremely powerful state of consciousness, which is the mind in a higher state of consciousness. When I say I, where does my mind go? Does my mind go to the physical form? I am a woman. I am so-and-so age. I was born here and there, wherever. This is my profession. This is my career. And my whole identity is absolutely based on this physical form. But when I separate the inner being from the awareness of this body, both are working together. For that inner being, the soul, is separate. And if I can focus my thoughts on the soul in this way, I'll begin to see that there is this difference, soul and body. And where is the mind? The mind is definitely not in the body. The mind is in the soul. And so I begin to feel how when I'm creating thoughts, if it's in unconsciousness, unawareness, I'm working on autopilot, then there's nothing creative that's coming. There's nothing fresh and new and inspirational that's happening. There's a recording that's going on and on and on. But when I know myself, then I take pauses, maybe every hour through the day, just for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If you take a break for water, nobody's going to stop you. And so even as I hydrate the body, let my mind experiment with this idea of simply being in that awareness of the inner being. And I look inside and I see the thoughts, I see the quality of thinking, I can feel it, but also I can feel it if somebody else is watching me. You've all had this feeling, I know. And so I begin to ask, well, who's in charge of my mind? And the answer comes back, I'm in charge. I am the one that's generating thoughts and feelings. And so I am actually the creator of my own mind and my own thoughts in my mind and my own feelings. Now, if I've come to this realization, and I do hope that everybody who's watching and listening will come to this awareness that this is who I am. I'm not body. I have an amazing chariot through which I can do whatever I choose, good or not so good. But actually, I'm not that. I am a point of light. And within me, this point of light, located here in the center of the forehead, there are thoughts and there are feelings. And if I give attention to the quality of my thoughts, what I carry around within myself is a garden, a beautiful garden of fragrant flowers, different colors, different varieties, but all of them coming together in a beautiful bouquet. And when I forget to give attention to the quality of my thinking, what happens then? Whoa, then I'm in a downward spiral and it gets worse and worse and worse. It begins with just ordinary thinking. Just thinking about eating, drinking, sleeping, shopping. That's it. That's my world. But from that state of just being ordinary, it's very easy to slip down the spiral and get to the state where it's a lot of waste. Have you been in a situation where an hour has gone by and at the end of that hour, you just feel heavy? You've not done anything. You haven't worked hard. But what were you doing? You were just sitting and letting your thoughts drift here and there, and things that you're not responsible for, things that you don't have to get your head into, but all of that. And by the end of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, never mind an hour, head begins to feel a bit heavy. And a feeling of tiredness starts creeping in. Haven't done anything. What I've been doing is overthinking. Just waste thoughts, waste energy, waste of time. But worse, if I let waste thoughts continue, at some point they'll actually become negative thoughts. And in that state in which there's negativity, there's fear, there's ego, there's insecurity, there are desires, there's comparison, there's jealousy, there's competition. All of these things are rampant. And these are also powerful thoughts, but they're not pure, they're not clean. And these powerful thoughts of negativity start generating an energy which is equally negative. My feelings become highly critical, and I feel let down, I feel lonely, I feel there's nobody who's supporting me or helping me, no one who's cooperating. The reality may be quite different, but the spin of my own thoughts pulling me downwards has created the state where I begin to feel helpless. During COVID times, many people benefited. They spent time with family. They began to value the simple things of life, like going out for half an hour just in the fresh air for exercise. Some people studied a lot. They helped their children with education, different things, but there was quite a chunk of the population, quite a large percentage. When they got to that state where they were feeling lonely, they weren't able to stop the negativity of the mind. And the negativity took them down further and further until they came into a state of depression. And that's a reality. Yes, maybe it's sparked by an outside situation, but the reality that I lose control of my own thoughts. Many years ago, one of the chiefs of WHO was at a social development conference in Geneva, and I was there also. And this person spoke about a pandemic that was creeping up on us and people hadn't yet realized. And this is about 20 years ago. And he predicted that within the space of 20 years, there would actually be a situation in which mental health issues would be pandemic. And this is exactly what has happened. The corona pandemic triggered the situation of a global pandemic in terms of mental health. And so how do I stop all this? By my recognizing who I am. Body is precious and valuable, but this is my instrument. My identity is not this. My identity is the spiritual being, a being of light. And as soon as I talk about these things, I begin to feel them. And yes, this is where I'm located. And as I begin to generate thoughts in which I recognize that I am a soul, not the physical body. And then what sort of soul am I? I go deeper inside and I realize that I'm actually a peaceful soul. And then the door of peace opens and shows me greater treasures, the treasures of love, the treasures of joy, the treasures of purity, the qualities that had eluded me totally now begin to come into the foreground of my experience. And the more I'm able to stay connected with this inner state of peace, the greater the power for that peace to spread out everywhere around me. You've known individuals who seem to have a capacity to stay up above the issues that other people are getting caught up in. And maybe I've been influenced by those powerful individuals in the sense that I, on my own, was experiencing the storm of thoughts. And I was telling myself, there's no point in thinking about this. Whatever is to be will be. This person has done such and such a thing. Well, he's not going to change by my telling him so. So now those thoughts are gone. And now there are thoughts of, I am an eternal being. I am the child of the divine. I am the one who's a chip of the old block, which means that whatever are the qualities of the divine, those are the qualities I carry within myself also. But these pure elevated thoughts are not just for a few minutes of meditation, but the thoughts come and gradually we understand how to be able to go back to that inner being in which I can find peace. But I realize I am the master of my own thoughts and my own feelings. That is the power of the mind. And when I choose to generate peace inside of me, my face changes, my behavior changes. Other people notice and they ask, what did you do? And all I did was to go inside and just realize that I'm the master of my mind. I didn't do anything else. That's it. That was as simple as that. So becoming powerful by making my mind powerful is a very natural and easy thing to do. Just to recognize who I am truly, external form aside, but the inner being takes over. And in that state, I make sure that my mind, my thoughts first and foremost, stay in that highest consciousness of my spiritual identity. And yes, I acknowledge that because I've been in this body since before I was born, I've stayed with it a long time. And so my identity has become connected with this totally. And what I'm reminded of is that the body can exist only when the soul is there. Soul can exist with or without the body, but the body can only exist whilst that living energy, that spark of light, the soul, is present. Once the soul has flown away, this isn't a body anymore. Even our language has changed, and we would say that it's a corpse. And all signs of life have left. And no matter how much we tried, we couldn't keep the soul in the body any longer. And that was true in absolutely every situation, in the sense that sometimes we blame ourselves. I should have done this, I could have done this, maybe that. When I'm in a situation, whatever it may be, just the awareness of the soul is going to carry me through all the challenges. In India, they say that there are 4 things that are very basic and part of the need framework of the human being. The first is the body. The second is the mind. The third is wealth. And the fourth is relationships. What does a powerful mind do with all of these things? Well, the first one, the body. The mind recognizes the value of this, but the mind also recognizes how when there are pure elevated thoughts, the body seems to be more comfortable and at peace with itself. Try it and you'll see. Think of the identity of the soul and feel that energy located in the forehead. But now, in this awareness of the soul, you'll be able to pick up whatever is the information that's being radiated from you, the soul, your mind, to the physical body. Fear, anxiety, worry, they're not just abstract qualities. They actually have a very tangible impact on my physiology. So my mind is impacting my body for the good news. Whatever are those qualities are now reaching out, and the vibrations of the body are also reaching the soul. So mind impacts matter. Matter is impacting mind also. It's a two-way journey. When I have good thoughts, what happens to my breath? My breath is calm, it's even, and it's very stable. And so I don't even have to think about putting one foot in front of the other foot. But there's an automatic system within the body that functions brilliantly. And so if we get invited to that, we can see how that works. And if the body is sometimes a bit uncomfortable, for whatever reason, it's ill health, it's the wrong type of food, whatever it may have been. But the mind is so powerful that just simply letting yourself become peaceful and still, the mind is able to allow the body to become calm. Now, I'm not saying you don't go to the doctor when you need to. I'm not saying you don't take prescription forms whenever you're given one. All of those things are part of life and it's fine. But what I can do is to provide the peace that the body needs to be able to heal itself, together with whatever medication I'm given, that's fine. But it's a very specific task. The mind has the authority and the power to let the body stay in a state of discipline and control. When the body is not well, the mind is in upheaval. When the mind is in upheaval, the body tends to go downhill. And I can't say when I'm asked, "Are you really fine?" And I'll maybe mouth the words, but from my vibration and from my eyes, you'll know that it's really a different story. But mind and body are connected, but it's the soul that's more powerful than the body. Why? Because the soul has energy, spiritual energy, and the body has biological energy, physical energy. But when it comes to health and all those issues, it's the mind that has the ultimate authority over the body. And if I haven't given attention to this, then the body takes over and makes its own demands known. But as a soul, in the awareness of soul, I can allow the body to start the process of healing itself. Wherever it is, that is the source of discomfort and pain, spend a few minutes being here, absolutely detached. So this is not my father or my mother or my brother. They just happen to be on this part of the journey together with us. But what I have to make them aware of is that I, the soul, am the master in charge. And yes, take whatever medication you need to take, etc., etc. But I can keep my consciousness up above so that even if the body is having to go through all sorts of things, I can keep smiling. I can keep a happy frame of mind. And that's so important during any illness. If the body's not well and the mind also feels unwell, it's going to be a hard journey for recovery. The body unwell and the mind strong and powerful with pure, elevated thoughts, sending that energy to the body. And within a short space of time, health returns. So body and mind, wealth and mind. My mind benefits if I use my health in the right way, if I use my wealth in the right way. If I'm using my wealth extravagantly, just simply for my personal comfort or my own pleasures, without thinking about my human family and love and concern for others, then that has a negative impact on the mind. My mind isn't going to be well. My mind isn't going to be healthy. The other way. I use all my assets for good, for benefit, to support, to give, wherever there's a need. And the feedback of that comes to the mind in the form of happiness, contentment, and blessings. If I use what I have in a worthwhile way, I receive blessings. Health, wealth, relationships. What's happening with relationships? If I keep my mind strong and powerful and pure and clean, how are relationships going to be? They're going to be filled with love and joy, giving and blessings. And if my mind isn't in that condition, relationships are going to be suffering. Relationships are going to go haywire. But keeping track of what's going on in my mind and keeping myself content and happy and compassionate and kind. And yes, I receive many, many blessings through the interaction I have with each and every one around me. So I hope that you'll practice keeping powerful thoughts, pure thoughts, clean thoughts in your mind on a daily basis. Start the day with time for yourself. That's being a benefactor to yourself, being benevolent to yourself. If I don't start with myself, I can't start out there. When I start with myself and experience all of this, then I can start things out there. Let's have a few minutes of meditation in which hopefully you'll have a feeling, a glimpse of what I've been saying. We usually meditate with our eyes open, but if you wish to gently let your eyes close, that's also okay. But the best posture is to sit upright with your back straight, both feet on the ground. And I'll share my thoughts and invite you to follow these ideas. Going on an inner journey, I visualize the inner being, the soul. I discover peace deep inside myself. This is my original state of being. Peace is natural. Peace is who I am. Peace is my treasure store. And I could share this treasure of peace holding peace in our consciousness. I come back to the things I need to do, but now the mind that's pure and peaceful. Thank you.